After the Oklahoma City bombing, the reality of divorce going up 800% in a department is unheard of. Why? Why aren't we speaking to those individuals during this event to prepare them for the manifestation changes that are going to go on in the spouse and in the family makeup from this type of an event? And let's prevent those divorces, as you said, economically. It's unsustainable to see that. We're at 30% increase in suicide rates. We're losing more first responders to suicide than on the job deaths. And they're doing it at the station. And so where have we come, and why have we not prepared those individuals for these certain situations? I briefly spoke with Mike Lay in an interview for our show on Solid Responder regarding the attack on the Pentagon. And Ann Carr was the wife and of a responder, and she had been very instrumental in creating what we knew as the beginning of a family support mechanism. It's strong in Maryland Task Force One, and unfortunately, the system had decided to not replicate that particular chapter in education for the new curriculum. And I found it, and a couple other older instructors found it obtrusive. We found it as non-valuable, and it was sad to hear the new millennial thoughts on eliminating something that we felt was so important, as we've seen the changes in the generations that affect them as well.
So it doesn't make sense, because there's been such a strong push just in general for I call it mental first aid.
Yeah.
People like our stigma still on mental health, but so I call it mental first aid because it makes sense for a little bit better for people. But there's been such a push for that and such a recognition for that. How about the recognition that even as a responder, there are levels? There is not a single person in the United States, yourself included, the expert, like the guy, literally, who had to have ever had to deal with 200+ story collapses from a terrorist attack. And you were the guy that responded to the only other domestic terrorist event that, took out a huge building, a federal building. There has to be some recognition that, hey, this is not normal. And because it's not normal, and what I mean by normal, I'm saying this as a guy who's responded to every kind of natural disaster and several man-made disasters in the book, kind of wrote the book in some ways. There is stuff I signed up for. There's stuff that I'm aware of. When firefighters are afraid, when they feel fear, when they're writing their name, that means something's different. That's not your typical house fire. I don't know, that everybody's hopefully evacuated already.
They're supposed to be 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And they're not fearing the response of an entry into a building or a car or whatever it is. They're fearing life itself and how it's affecting their mental health and their thought patterns and their family and their life, and how they're dealing with their other significant other, their children, etc. And I wish, for a certain degree, I grew up and worked in the old firehouse, and we didn't have individual bedrooms. We had a common room. We didn't have individualness. We all ate at the table together. Everybody chipped in $7, $8, $9. We all bought dinner, and whether we were able to finish cooking it, whether some had to go out on the call, whether we kept it warm until they came back, whether we left them dishes to have to do to share the responsibilities. It was a family makeup, and there was a reason for it. It was to be able to lean on each other when times were tough, but also when it didn't involve fire department, when it didn't involve rescuing anybody, just the everyday chores of, man, I'm struggling in this part of my life, or I'm struggling in that part of my life. You got any suggestions? And that's really where the strength comes from. And I think we're missing that. I think we're all getting on our social media platforms, and we're depending on somebody across that electronic screen to rely on and to talk to, instead of the guy or the girl next to me who we could share so much together, or even miles away that you and I can get on a Zoom call and share some real heart to heart issues and some thoughts. The mind boggling memories of when I returned home and I went to my children's ex elementary school. Now they're in high school. I went to their elementary schools because we had great relationships with their teachers. And I wanted to speak to those children because of what I saw taped up to the walls at the World Trade Center as we walked by. And they were pictures of children across the country drawing burning buildings, people jumping out of buildings. And how does a child process those images from day to day, from week to week? And as parents, are we allowing children to be desensitized by watching these type of events and playing these type of games and not having a reality check of what's real and what's not?
Yeah, the reality check of what's real and what's not. I think even if you see what's real, it's hard to comprehend that it is real. Joe, if you're going to give some advice to a first responder or emergency manager, anybody who'd be dealing with the response, humanitarian even, what would you be your final call to them today?
Learn how to take a little trauma timeout.
I love it.
Not only for yourself, but for those around you. Time out. Don't expose yourself and don't expose those around you.